Hi there. So, before I start talking about any of the shit in this video, please go watch part 1 and part 2. They're going to be posted 2 days and a day before this one, so check it out. The first one's going to discuss defining the term transgender as I see it. The best argument I have is actually very much in line with the, the National Center for Transgender Equality, specifically the notion that anyone who has a dissonant experience with their gender identity is trans. So when I say dissonant, I mean disagreement, similar to the idea of cognitive dissonance. So I just want to kind of review that for just a second. My argument is that anyone who at some point in their life becomes aware of the fact that they experience gender dissonance is transgender and may at some point in their life experience gender dysphoria, because gender dysphoria is the pathological effects of not being able to be who you are. Cool? Golden? Awesome. In the second argument, I argued that non-binary people are absolutely, based on the definitions I've given, part of the trans community. Full stop. Hi, Zena.
Hello.
So, the reason I feel passionate about this is because, again, things like this, these differences and these discretions really really matter. They affect things. If we can see people like LGB without the T happen in the world, or the weird shit in the UK, the fact of the matter is that they can try to push on this divide more, and they have with people on YouTube and the like. So please watch that video; it covers it more. Cool. So the last thing I'm covering for the night, as far as this particular series of arguments, is just this idea. There is a term that is used against trans women that is abhorrent and absolutely ugly to use. And I don't know if it even affects most of us anymore, because to be clear, we've heard it so much, it's sort of desensitized. That term is, and I'm going to say a trigger warning, transphobic use of words for trans women and trans femmes. Okay? There's a trigger warning. 3, 2, 1. You will never be a woman. So, why is this the main phrase used by TERFs? Well, trans exclusionary radical feminists, or as they like to call themselves, gender critical, though that is their chosen name, so I will stick with TERF, generally speaking, equate womanhood with biology, much like the patriarchy. That is, the parts you have in your body make you who you are. But anyone can immediately, with like a 3rd grade education, can tear this down. If a woman has a hysterectomy, is she still a woman? Well, yeah, she's still a cis woman. She's still a cis woman. Shut up. That's just how that works. Like, having an organ removed because it was malfunctioning or it's an issue doesn't suddenly take away your gender, right? If that's your identity, that's your identity. And so this is the argument we're kind of working with here, is when somebody says, you will never be a woman, what they're really saying is, you will never be a woman to me. I saw this happen on Reddit recently, where I had posted about my recent name change, right? So I've actually legally changed my name now. Very cute. But, and this is the really important thing, there was a person that came on there and started harassing me, which is fine, report them, no big deal. But the report was essentially saying, like, no one will ever see you as a woman. And so that type of argument, these people think hurts, but I'm, first off, not new into my transition, so fuck off. But 2, it's just demonstrably false. What do you mean by that? Do you mean that, much like the TERF, you will never see me as a woman? Okay, cool. Then I know not to talk to you. You're gross. But if you're saying other people won't see me as a woman, arguable. Are there going to be some progressives that don't really see trans women as women, but they're going to performatively still use our pronouns and our name? Sure. Happens all the time. But when I behave in the way that I am in the world, that is, when I'm walking through a public place And people call me ma'am and miss when my partner and I are being intimate. I am a woman by every conceivable measure. Unless you're using this nonsensical biological argument. Because it gets really fallacious really quickly. If you're assuming that just losing an organ suddenly makes you not a woman, okay, but please understand the actual ramifications of that statement. Just because you are born right with a vagina, or at puberty you started growing breasts, this doesn't necessarily mean that's what a woman is. We've coded that as a woman, right? We've linguistically coded that as such. But we know there are people who have those organs and identify as men. And they are men in every social function and every interaction. Because these idea of man and woman do not, in any way, shape, or form, really correspond with these body parts. We think they do, but the fact is they just really don't. The idea that being female is associated with these biological terms, that's all arbitrary. It's all socially constructed. We could call them anything. I could say that that's a tomato type person. That's a spoon type person. It has the same level of arbitrary terminology assigned to that particular configuration of human biology, right? Like, this ignores the fact that one gender is, or biology, is bimodal. That is, it's not binary. It's not man, woman. It's male and female in a bimodal set, and the two sort of run into one another. But it also gets into the fact that, again, when someone says to you, you will never be a woman, they're idiots. They're lying. They do not in any way have the power over you to say what you are. They just don't. I'm sorry. I know it hurts. I know it sucks. I know it's really rough. And trust me, that shit gets to me sometimes. I'll admit it. Now watch, there's gonna be 1,000 transphobes in the comment for reviews saying that you'll never be a woman. It's good. I don't read them so they can fuck off. But the point here is really simple. If I stop for a second, get out of my own insecurities and my own dysphoria, and just look at the situation, I am a woman by every measure. The way my friends interact with me. Like, I've seen this. Friends of mine who have been incredibly supportive of my transition, people I didn't expect, treat me differently. They're protective. They're caring in a way that they weren't previously. That's not to say they weren't protective or caring before, but something shifted. There's a way in which, like, my emotions have more room. My way of being has more space. And that's the thing here, is that I want to make it really clear from these arguments. Everyone who is dissonant with their gender is, by all rights, transgender. And as such, using that definition and understanding the inclusivity that I'm trying to create, then let's be very, very clear. These words are arbitrarily chosen. If you identify as a woman, you are a woman. That is not a circular logic thing, because the problem here is that reasoning doesn't work in this particular format. I actually really like what ContraPoint said about this. Specifically, that we were cast adrift into a universe that has no inherent meaning. I think she said it slightly differently, but I'll just say it. From an existential perspective, we were just sort of cast into a universe where we arbitrarily decide these things, and then we project a god and assume a creator and all these other things. But the fact is that we don't even know that shit. It's all just arbitrarily assigned, made. And here's the thing is, just because there's no inherent meaning doesn't mean that life can't have meaning. You have to construct it yourself. You have to find your happiness in your own way. But the idea that your body parts immediately in some way push you towards one way or the other, and you have no choice, is a fundamentally toxic reality. The idea that just because you were born with certain parts arbitrarily, because you were born in this time, this place, with this ethnicity, all of this shit is random. Like, why does no one talk about this? This idea that your gender is something that's just assigned to you. It's just handed to you. But so is everything else. Your race, your ethnicity. Like, we give people shit. We fucking categorize people into worse and worse perspectives simply for the fact that they are born a certain way. And I really dislike that. I really dislike that, because that starts to become a weird form of like, it just becomes this weird form of almost like a form of like blaming, like where it becomes an issue where the person essentially is held responsible for this timeline of things that they had nothing to do with. And so this is one of the reasons why I'm really disturbed by this idea of you're not a woman, is not because it bothers me on a personal level, not really, not much these days. What bothers me is that in order to state that, in order to have that view, you have to be living in an incredibly gross, toxic worldview that is so tiny and so determined and so gross. If you're like, well, gender is just always connected to sex, and as such, this is the life you have to live, that's how you are, that's a really, really reductive view, and also really fucked. Like, do you guys understand that? Does that make sense? Like, this is the point I'm trying to get to laboriously. By definition, this is why I say that conservatism is pathology. If we look at TERFs, if we look at the arguments that anti-trans people make, it betrays a reality that is disturbing in its implications. A reality that is not empirical, a reality that is essentially ideological, that is fed through propaganda, and by definition is so toxic to not only other people, right? Who the fuck has time to go post in comments, "You'll never be a woman"? Like, think about how fucking pathetic a person has to be to do that. Like, I'm just a trans girl online talking about shit. I'm not even the most radical person out here. And like, yeah, time to be transphobic. I'm not doing shit to you. What are you talking about? Like, this is my point. I'm not saying you should pity these people, because they are doing demonstrably harmful things. But I want you to understand the pitiable state they live in. Because for them to argue that you will never be a woman betrays a philosophical inclination that is fundamentally pathological, toxic, reductive, predestined, and just abhorrent. It essentially sticks you into a certain placement in the world from which you can never escape. Like, when I think about that, I feel that in my gut. I feel that in this like sudden crumpling where I'm like, I suddenly don't have choices. I don't have ways I want to be. I can't. There's nothing. There's just lay down and rot. I mean, in some ways, these people's views are basically no different than incels. Just lie down and rot. So yeah, "you will never be a woman" is a bullshit claim that has no basis in reality, because these people are using a reductive version of womanhood. And let's be really clear. For them to act in the manner they're acting is the behavior of cultists and people behind a worldview that is fundamentally toxic. So there's the arguments. So if you didn't watch the first two parts to this, go back and do that. Part 1, defining gender. Part 2, non-binary people are transgender. 3, why you will never be a woman is fucking stupid. I am going to, at some point, maybe do a part 4. If something comes up, if there's a discussion, I might want to do something for trans men, because I think they get left out of the conversation a lot, and non-binary people more so. I just want to throw some love to trans guys. I have so many people that I've worked with that are trans guys, and they're just lovely boys. They're so wonderful. But anyway, if you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell if you want notifications. And if you want to help the channel, please go to streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip, and you can do a donation. Donations are cool. There'll be a little cute Godzilla thing that'll pop up. And if you want, you can also become a patron. You can do that at patreon.com/transgirltherapist, right? I want to invite you guys to really consider this stuff, because I'm very big into practicality. I don't like esoteric bullshit. I don't like getting lost in the abstractions and theory. I want to know how things work in the world. I want to know how to make them work now. One, because I have no patience because I have ADHD, but two, because I feel like people get overly disconnected from reality when they go to these ideological corners. And I think TERFs are no different. They get sucked in, right? A young lesbian gets told all these bad things about trans women, and she gets pulled into an ideological corner. It's no different than a cult. So if you like this video, do all the things I said. Feel free to donate, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.